Hello, welcome to today's Bachelor of Art and Design 3D Animation and Visual Effects webinar. My name's Steve Dorner. So I'm getting some messages in the background. My name is Steve Dorner, and I will be taking you through the program. 1 second, let me just reply. Apologies. 1 second, and I will carry on. Right. We will carry on. As I was saying, we are going to discuss the 3D animation and visual effects program this afternoon. And I can see the chat. So, and Q&A. So feel free at any time to pop things into the Q&A or the session chat if you have any questions or any comments. Hopefully everyone can hear me quite clearly. So yeah, we will get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the session. Sorry, I'm still getting messages in the background. Excuse me. Let me just make sure once again. I am seeing everything that I should be seeing. Okay. Again, I hope everyone can see. Hope everyone can see the presentation screen. Could someone please just in the questions area, can someone please just pop a quick confirmation that you can see my screen? Yep, I'm not getting any verification. I could just get someone in the session to pop something into. Right. Well, it does look like I'm sharing, so I will just carry on. And hopefully you are seeing that full screen. And yes, now I have lost my. Sorry, seem to have lost my ability to see the questions. I'm just going to stop again for a second. Apologies for the slow start. Let me see if I can reactivate my might just quickly, here we go, chat. I do see my chat. We see it. Thank you very much. Yes, now I've got confirmation and I'll carry on. Again, my apologies. Let's get started. We'll make this as entertaining as possible. Right. There we go. Right. So carrying on. So the program that I'm going to be discussing today really does focus on the area of visual effects and 3D animation for filmmaking. I think probably the best way to demonstrate the kind of work that our students do is to show you some student work. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. Hey.
Sorry, I was running late in the other session.
You're okay. I've had a bit of a false start, but I think that we're on track now. Hopefully, again, everybody will be able to see and hear. I just want to make sure quickly that I am sharing my audio. So I'm just going to close that up for a moment. I know on some of these applications, you have to turn audio on, but I think that I've got my audio working. So let's see. As I was saying, the best way to discuss a program like ours is to show you some student work. So I'm going to start by showing you a film called Immersion. Now, this was completely created by students. They designed the characters, they developed the story, they directed and produced. So the entire thing was made by students. And as you can see by the laurels on the poster, this film was submitted and screened at international film festivals globally. So the US and Europe and a number of other international locations. So again, without further ado, I'm just going to play this down. Again, hopefully you'll be able to hear the audio as well. This is the film Immersion.
The audio seems not to be working.
Thank you, Sabrina. I was afraid of that. Share. Let me see if I can. One share sound. I've got it. There we go. Again, apologies for the misstart, but here we go. Once again, this is Immersion. So a bit of a dark story, but it does have a somewhat happy ending with our heroes ending up in a virtual hereafter, I suppose. That was made by 10 students in an 11-week period. So really quite an accomplishment. And, again, we're really quite proud that this was competed with other films in international film festivals and was juried to be of high enough quality to be shown in these different festivals. So really proud of the students' accomplishments. We'll talk more about our films as we go through the presentation. Now, just quickly introduce the school. Potentially you'll be studying online. I'm assuming that this is a virtual open day. We do have offerings on fully on campus, um, or fully online. Fully on campus is blended, so some of your studies will be online, even if you have registered as a face-to-face learner. You would be coming to campus for some of the classes, but you'd also be studying online. Media Design School has about 1,000 students. There are about 200 students in the Bachelor of Art and Design program across all 3 years. Um, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary, and across the school, we really do focus on digital design. Visual communication really is the thread that ties all of the programs together. Now, we are the Bachelor of Art and Design. Those are the big letters. 3D animation and visual effects are the smaller letters in the brackets underneath it. And again, we are really focused on storytelling through pictures. In a film, typically, if you hear a lot of dialogue and there are the characters are telling you what you should know about the film, can be kind of boring. It's called exposition, and nobody wants to listen to a lot of talking heads. We want to learn and feel what's happening in the film, make up our own mind on how the story is progressing, really through what we see and not necessarily what the characters are talking about. So art is really important. What we're looking at here is just some speed paintings, some thumbnails for laying out various environments. Um, it's quite time consuming to build these 3D environments. So artist and industry will do a lot of very quick thumbnail layouts to look at how they're going to arrange the different elements in their scene before they start working in the more time-consuming and laborious 3D softwares that we use. Photography is also really important to us. Photography, again, we're working with virtual cameras in a 3D environment. And in visual effects, we're combining live action uh, visuals, plates that have been photographed um, with CG characters, with 3D characters. And within that composition, we really want to understand the way that light works, the way that cameras capture light. Photography is great because it gives us the ability for our students to quickly experiment with layout and composition, but also really important because we're using virtual cameras in the 3D environment. And to really understand how to create photorealistic work, it's really important that we understand the way real photos and real light works in the real world. CG fundamentals are obviously a core skill that everyone learns, the creation of these CG computer graphic objects. And we really do focus on photorealistic. We'll give you a little challenge later on in the session to see if you can tell what's real and what's been created digitally. But once again, it's very important in a visual effects film that the audience believes what they see. So photographic realism in computer graphics is what our program's about. Even if we kind of stray into the area of very stylistic or cartoony sort of characters or environments, you have to believe that they're real. You have to believe that there is a physical weight on the end of that fishing pole. You have to believe that there's gravity. You have to understand the struggle that the fisherman's going through by his body mechanics and his body movement. The film that we looked at a few minutes ago, Immersion, again, they used what's called a toon shader to make it look sort of flat, sort of, the 2D cell animated sort of look. And the characters are very stylized and very cartoony, but all of their movements, you believe that they really exist in some world. So that idea of believability and photorealism is really the core backbone of what we hope to teach our students. I would assume that most of you have played with Photoshop and understand layer-based compositing. Compositing is one of the skills that we teach as well. If you've used Photoshop or After Effects, Premiere, you understand layer-based methodology of adding one element above the other. Uh, Industry uses more sophisticated tools. We use an application called Nuke. If you look on the right of this image, all those little, what looks like an electronic schematic, a circuit board, that's a nodal-based compositing interface. Each one of those little rectangles represents a different effect that's being applied. It's infinitely more easy um, to move around your composite to adjust the various effects and the various modifiers on all of the different nodes, and you can be a lot more complex in the adjustments of your scene. Scripting, we teach two types of coding, Mel, which is the native language for Maya, the 3D program that we use, and Python, which is the native language for Nuke, the compositing application we use. Now, we don't have a lot of emphasis on scripting or coding. We're not the Bachelor of Software Engineering, but to understand the way that the applications work and to create some very simple repetitive tasks really makes you a much more efficient artist if you can do a little bit of coding underneath the user interface. And again, making films. It's what we're all about. So that's what students should be engaged in. What we're looking at here is a scene from one of our films, Over the Moon. We'll talk a little bit more about film productions in year 3. But this is the idea of a photographic plate, actors on green screen that are then modified in the digital environment. We are a bachelor's program, so there are research components through all 3 years. Research is really important because it makes you a lifelong learner and an advanced problem solver. In the industry, things are always changing, and it's important that you keep current with new techniques and new tools, and certainly having a good understanding of how to conduct research, again, makes you a very efficient learner. So those are some of the subjects that we cover throughout the 3 years in the program. And here's basically in the 3 years the journey our students take in order to get to the point where they can make the sort of films that we looked at in the beginning with Immersion. So first year, Core 3D. all of our students learn the various departments in a production VFX production pipeline. So core 3D skills, core animation skills, core compositing skills. A really generalist look at um, modeling, rigging, animating, texturing, lighting, and again, layering and compositing in a nodal user interface. This helps our students in two ways. One, it helps them understand the language of the different departments. Because, of course, when you're working in a film and when you're working with in a visual effects studio, you're working interdisciplinary. You're working with artists who are, in the pipeline doing different procedures, and you need to be able to speak the same language as them. You need to know what it is they're doing, how they're building what they're building, and you need to be able to again interact with them and speak their language. It's also really important, these core 3D studies, because it helps students identify the area that's of most interest to them. Because in the second year, our students then progress on and choose a elective subject. Now, those elective subjects are generalist 3D artists. So those are our architects, right? They're the modelers that make the castles, make the spaceships, the creatures, the dragons. Um, Basically, again, the architects that build the different elements. The animators then will build those, bring those creatures to life that the modelers have made, and again, build that very believable performance. There are actors, if you will. And then the compositors, again, that sort of idea of Photoshop, they bring all the different elements together. The actors on green screen, the live action uh, plates, the backgrounds that were shot on location, along with all of the 3D elements and animated creatures. They put it all together. They make sure it looks perfect. Um, they make a number of adjustments to really sell this as a very believable photorealistic image. So year two, you're specializing in an area. The animators don't model, the modelers don't animate, and the compositors don't animate, and the animators don't composite. So you're really studying a specialist set of skills in an area that interests you. The third year, everybody comes back together. They work interdisciplinary. They work collaboratively, and they make films. We're all about project-based learning, right? So, what better way to learn how to create visual effects for a film somewhere like Weta or Animal Logic or Digital Domain or Industrial Light and Magic? I mean, what students want is the experience of making visual effects in a film environment, and certainly that's the experience that we provide for them. We also we also engage in sequential and focused learning. Now, what does that mean? Well, sequential means that you learn one thing at a time, as opposed to trying to learn modeling on Mondays and Wednesdays, animation on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and compositing on Fridays. Our experience in the 25 years that we've been teaching 3D is that if you try to teach in that manner, like a normal sort of university set of subjects, by Monday, the students can no longer remember what they've learned about modeling because they've also had to learn about animation and compositing. So we teach one thing at a time. As you can see, we start year one with some very creative, less technical subjects, traditional art, photography, digital painting, and motion design. And then we move into foundational subjects. It's really just a way to teach Maya and how to use the 3D application. Once you've got a good working foundational knowledge of Maya, you move on and you spend 4 weeks concentrating on animation. So that's the focused part. And the sequential part is a sequence of one thing after the other. Deep dive into animation, followed by a deep dive into modeling, deep dive into texturing and lighting, deep dive into compositing, and then you put it all together with a project, capstone project at the end of the first year. So again, every subject is covered in depth, um, and students have a really good understanding of the entire process at the end of their first year. Now, it's important if you're to understand how to communicate in film that we study film. When we talk, and certainly the focus part of the sequential focus learning is that um, we focus on film design. So unlike a lot of other schools where you'd learn color theory in a very generic sort of look at how color's used to communicate, um, we look at films. We look at films scene by scene, sometimes frame by frame, to see how color um, helps to communicate story information. We look at universal principles of design, and again, not just kind of in a very generic sort of way, but we look at design as it applies to film. We look at classative narrative. We look at a little bit of history of photography. Again, very important in what we're doing because we're doing simulated photography in our studies. Film genres, film studies, so that you understand how films are made because, again, one day you would be part of that process. The deep dive, so one day a week, you're studying theory, film theory, design theory for film. And then the other 4 days a week, you're learning the, 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 the technical skills, the practical skills of 3D modeling. And again, you're learning things like topology, organic, hard surface, inorganic sort of modeling. Um, you then move on and you start to understand the principles of animation, timing, body mechanics, etc. Move on to texturing and lighting. What we're seeing here is a nodal-based lighting flow. Uh, this is a recipe for metal to create an object that has the same sort of properties of reflection and shine, you know, the bounce of light that that type of metal would have in the real world. And also compositing, we're just looking here at an image of an actor who's been shot on green screen and then composited out. In this film, this is an excerpt from a film called uh, First Contact, and this actor's entire head was replaced with an alien's head. His body was retained, but the head was replaced. And again, we'll talk more about the movies that we produce a little bit later. So once students are finished with their first year and they move on to the second year, first 8 weeks is once again more creative than technical. Really now getting away from just design for film and starting to really look at making films. So a little bit about pre-production or pre-visualization, a little bit of video production, and the scripting here is a little bit of the coding that will help you become a better artist. And then the elective that you've chose. Technical director, those again are CG generalists. And they look at rigging, which is putting in the bones in an object, in a creature, so that the animators can animate it. Both the technical directors, the modelers, and the animators learn a little bit of rigging. But after that, again, the technical team are learning all advanced subject matter in the area of modeling, rendering, lighting, surfacing, etc. The animators stick really into the performance art of acting, how body mechanics work, how we communicate information by our body language, by micro expressions, etc. And then the third elective, the compositors, really get into new 2D, 3D compositing. You've learned a little bit of these things in year one, but these are really, really, really specialized advanced skills in these areas. Now, I said I'd give you a little bit of a challenge. So let's see what we can do here. Now, when we're talking about photorealism, and we're talking now about the technical modelers, surfacers, lighters, we're always giving them challenges to reproduce reality, if you will. And this is true for modelers, animators, and compositors. One of the projects, after you've learned hard surface modeling, digital sculpting, surfacing, lighting, rendering, is something called the Still Life Mini Project. Students bring in props. We have a photo studio on campus, or if you're working remotely, you set up a little 3-light setup at home using just standard lighting apparatuses. You take your photo, and we want the photo to tell a story. And then from that photo, you recreate that. The photo is reference. You recreate that in the 3D environment. Now, one of these is real, a photograph of the props that were brought into the photo studio, and the other is a 3D replica, a 3D recreation of that photograph. Again, I really like this photo because it tells a bit of a story about a heist or a kidnapping and a ransom, or you get that sort of vibe, that sort of criminal sort of vibe going on. One's real and one's what we call rendered. Rendering is a process of taking all of the 3D data and turning it into a picture. Just to yourself, have a look. Do you think the real one is on the left or the right? So pick one of the two, and I'll reveal the answer now. So the real one was on the left. Actually, real world props, objects brought in and photoed in the studio. We're going to do best of 3, see how you can go, and see if you can get 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3. I like this image as well because it's got a really, for me, it tells a spy. It's got the story is that of a spy. They've got their Russian passport. They've got the picture of where they're meant to go. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. They've got to catch a train, get there early. Again, one of these is real, and one of them is rendered. So take a second. It's the real one on the left, the real one on the right. Right, and the real one this time is on the right. There's some small things that are giveaways, the kind of the little bit of dirt on the face of the clock, the differences in depth of field. You can see the real one has a little bit more depth of field on the picture and on the number 5, and you can really see that matches much better. Right, one more, best out of 3, and I think this is my favorite of the 3 images. This is looking back at an ancestor, a forefather who's been to war. We've got the medals. We've got the picture of our relative in the camp when they're in battle. We see the letter home, the written letter to their loved ones at home. In the background, again, out of focus, that depth of field focus, we see the platoon, the other members of the troop that they're in. We see the poppy. Again, I think it's just a really, really lovely image that tells a really lovely story. One's real, one's 3D. Can you tell the difference? Is the real one on the left or on the right? And in this instance, again, the real one is on the left. So that's the level of skill that our students reach by the end of year 2. The animators, of course, have been working away through year 2 on animation. Again, these characters look really, really cartoony, but if you look at the girl in the background, you can read on her face that she's, trying not to look too impressed. She's a little bit amused, she's, and you can see that on the expression on the character in the foreground's face that, he's really showing off and he's trying to impress a girl. I mean, we just get that. We read that story information. So, that's what the animators have been working away doing. And the compositors, of course, are taking all of these different images, exploring different tools and different methods of putting those images together, making them look fantastic. But more than that, making the audience, making an image that the audience believes is 100% one real picture as opposed to a picture made up of potentially dozens of different elements. Once we get to this point, we're looking at year 3. We've got 2 productions, Team Production 1, which is our major production, Team Production 2, which is our minor production. And of course, there's, as I said, bachelor's program, there's a research project, which students engage in individually. So 2 team projects. What we looked at the beginning of the presentation was Team Production 2. That was the minor project. So students engage in a much bigger project to start with. Now, what is all this project-based learning about? Well, it's to produce students who have a very good understanding of what it's like to work in a professional visual effects studio, and are ready to hit the ground running, if you will, who are work ready when they graduate. So our production classes, the major production simulates an industry workplace. Peter Jackson doesn't ask his visual effects artists to go out and pretend they're hobbits. So we don't expect our students to do anything that they haven't been taught how to do. They're not they're not actors in our films, although students who are animators do learn about acting, but not with their own bodies, right? So they can't really be expected to do things they haven't been taught to do. Students apply the subject matter they've learned in year 1 and 2. They work in teams. They're directed by a professional film director and visual effects supervisors, all of who are teachers in our program. It's a real world production environment. And again, I encourage you to look at some of our films and see for yourself the quality that we produce. Everything we do, we look to how industry does it, and we try to do it exactly the same way. We implement industry tools. We use, again, we have a budget. We use professional actors, professional cinematographers, so that all of the assets, all of the materials our students have to work with when they're doing their VFX work is incredibly high quality and professional materials. So if you have really professional materials to work with, you do professional work, you have very, very professional results. It's not an internship. We never lose sight of the fact that this is a teaching experience. Some of the films that you might want to look at, some of my favorite, Shelved is slacker robots who learn that they're about to be replaced in the factory by humans, which is very embarrassing if you're a robot. Rotting Hill, 2 zombies fall in love and slowly rot together. Over the Moon, we looked at that picture earlier of the actors on green screen. This is a fantastic film. This one was shown at Comic-Con in San Diego in their professional film festival entry. So again, really, really high quality and really shown at some of the biggest festivals in the world. The smaller team productions give students a chance to do more creative work around designing their own characters, developing their own stories, and they produce 2 of those. They produce a second film, Cookies and Scream, Halloween, one of the trick-or-treaters is not what they seem. Impasse is another really excellent film, a couple of cowboys fighting over water in the desert. And of course, the research project, again, helps you explore something through research, a problem that you haven't really been able to solve in your studies that you want to learn more about. You conduct research and develop, again, a deeper understanding of that process. Right. On our YouTube channel, if you go to YouTube, you type in Media Design School and you click on our Media Design School channel, look in our playlists, right? There are a lot of playlists, but if you find the playlist that's called Media Design School Short Films, you'll see the films that we've been talking about. Again, we make probably about well, 2 major films and up to 8 minor films every year. Lots and lots of really cool things to look at here. Right, and those, again, just some of the films that you might want to have a look at. These are all of our major films, but again, you can really see the level of quality that our students reach. So these films are really good for the students because they get the valuable work experience. They take direction. They understand what it's like to work in a studio with directors and visual effects supervisors. They're continually problem solving and learning more, almost as if they're on the job. They're credited with the credit in a short film, and these short films then are shown at festivals. And you could say that you have credit on a film that was shown at Comic-Con, which is like real world work experience, right? We call it production experience, and that's basically what you have at the end of your studies. So again, you have a head start against every other graduate who has not worked on a film and doesn't have any work experience. This then translates into employment statistics. We did a survey last year. Students who finished in the end of 2021, by March of 2022, 72% of those students were working in the visual effects industry. After a couple of years, more and more students are finding work in the industry. Within the 3 years after they finish their studies, almost all of our students are working in the visual effects industry. So really good. Within 6 months, 72% of our students are working. Here's in this survey, we asked them what studios they were working at. And here's a list of all the different studios. These are studios in New Zealand, Australia, and international studios. You might recognize some of the bigger studios: Animal Logics in Sydney, Digital Domains in the US and other locations, Frame Stores in London, Industrial Light and Magic, right? That's George Lucas's Star Wars company. Luma Pictures is in Melbourne, and Moving Picture Company, again, around the world, but they started in the UK. Rising Sun is Melbourne. Weta Effects, of course, is in Wellington. And there are lots of small studios as well. Excuse me. Cause and Effects is a small studio. When I say small, about 100 employees. They worked on the Amazon film, the Amazon series Rings of Power. This is just a screen grab from the credits. Of the 10 people who were credited from Cause and Effects for working on Rings of Power, the 14 people who were credited, 10 of them were media design school graduates. So our graduates are really, really sought after because of their experience, their knowledge. So just to wrap things up, it's a studio approach to learning. We hope that when our students graduate and they go to work at Weta Effects, that it is just like they never left class, right? That they are that familiar with the processes. You're learning with industry professionals. Again, it's teaching, not an internship. So we're always concentrating on our student progress and helping them develop the skills to do the work that they're tasked to do. Learning what it takes to achieve quality. When is good enough good enough? You're working on a large supervised production, just like in the real world. And then you also get to make your own short film. And again, be much more involved in every aspect of the creative portion. Yes, and that's the presentation. And certainly we have time, I think a little bit of time, for any questions that you have to ask. So again, I'm just gonna stop sharing and open up both my chat and questions. If I can find my question, there we go, Q&A. Cool. Right. Is there anything I can answer before we end the session? So yeah, if you want to pop a question in the questions app or in the comments in the chat. Right, everybody is very quiet.
If
Awesome.
if you do have any questions and a bit shy, you can always email domestic@mediadesignschool.com. I'll pop the email address in the chat. So, if there's anything you guys would like to ask, just message us, you give us an email, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for coming along this afternoon and having a look. I do apologize for some of the hiccups in the very beginning, but hopefully we got things rolling along pretty well. Here's some comments. Thank you again. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation, and I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Oh, here we go. How many times a week do we study from remotely? It's a full-time course. So both students who are on campus who are studying remotely attend class 5 days a week. 4 days a week are your practical studies. 1 day a week is your theory studies. Classes run for 4 hours, so half a day. And then you have obviously some assignments to work on after classes end. We do expect that students will put in about 40 hours a week, but only 20 of those hours are in class, 20 of those hours in class, and 20 of those hours we're expecting that you'll be working on your homework and your assignments. Right. Okay. Hope that answers your question. Thank you again very much, everyone, for your time. Hope to see you around campus or online sometime in the future. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.